Contenders, ready! Gladiators, ready! 3, 2, 1, the Gladiators!
Hello and welcome to another instalment of the Glad Pod in association with Gladiators TV. I'm David Blackmore and here once more, as always, is Jet and producer Paul. Thank you to everyone who continues to like and share the podcast and more importantly, passing it on. That's key. That definitely is key, especially with people sharing their stories with us. What I love most about the podcast is just the long-term impact that Gladiators has had on people's lives. We've had some incredible letters from listeners, and when diving into the mailbag this week, I noticed this great letter from Jordana. So she listened to the podcast on her way home from work, and that immediately made me wonder, how do you listen to the podcast when you're listening to us? I know some people have mentioned to me that they listen to it while they're running, others taking their dogs out, and some listen at work, which I don't understand. How can you listen to it at work? So I guess if you've got a job that you're moving, I guess maybe, but yeah, let me know. gladpod@gladiatorstv.com. It'd be great to hear how and when. So send us some pictures as well. You're listening to the show, and she's picked a name for a guest that she'd love to hear from that I don't think's been suggested to us yet, and that is season 3 champion Paul Field. Now, she describes him as an absolute powerhouse that seemed to excel in nearly all of the events and was a really worthy winner of the show. And she goes on to explain how he went to the international show as well, but seemed to have a nasty injury in a final, which was a real shame. And she concludes that it seems like he disappeared off the Glad radar. Shouldn't that not be Gladar from there on in? And she would absolutely love to hear what happened for him next. And of course, his Glad journey. Paul, coming to you first. What do you remember of Paul Field?
Yeah, Paul Field, I think Jordana summed it up really well. He was just a powerhouse of a contender. He was so good. I believe he kind of had a bobsleighing background and competed in the 92 and 94 Winter Olympics. And he was just a superb contender. It was the same series as iconic contenders such as Eunice and Karen. And the grand final of that episode where he actually ended up losing his tooth in a game of Powerball against Warrior, Shadow and Hunter, I think it was, shows kind of how aggressive and how much it kind of meant to everybody. He actually went on to the international competition as well from being the Series 3 champion, and he just lost out to Wesley Two Scoops Berry, which again is another iconic contender. So probably at the pinnacle of Gladiators, basically. He was a fantastic contender, and he's definitely someone that I'm trying to hunt down and get him signed up to the Glad Pod. So Paul, if you're listening, or anyone who knows Paul, get in touch. We'd love to speak to you.
Yeah, and I guess, Di, your memories of Paul Field.
I think, any contender that walked into that arena, I would already be in awe of the fact that they'd got to that point, let alone to become a champion. And a champion then would take across the world to kind of defend our title in the gladiatorial universe of international events as well. I remember him being very handsome. Just like the collateral damage, I'd just lose a tooth. That kind of sums up one of our champion contenders absolutely brilliantly. Yeah, very fond memories of all of them, actually, on the few years that I did. And it's great when you watch a bit of footage back like that. It brings it right back into the present. It seems timeless, doesn't it? You see a contender like that, and again, he's an ex-Olympian. I was always really happy when we'd get an Olympian in the arena, because if they weren't still competing, they were still willing to throw themselves at something kind of new and fresh like Gladiators, because if they were still competing, you wouldn't enter the arena because the injury risk was just too high to stake, a championship kind of career on. So yeah, hats off to it.
Absolutely. The reason that this letter caught my eye was this. So she wanted to say a huge thank you to you, Di. You've never met, but from an early age, she says that she was really inspired by you, and you were a hugely positive role model for her growing up. And the inspiration, she goes on, seemed to have come full circle, as several years ago, she began a big career change into art psychotherapy, which is something I've actually heard of before. And she was having a bit of a kind of crisis about the transition from what she was doing before, which she doesn't mention into this new field. But one of the things that carried her through was, if Jet can be a gladiator and a psychotherapist, so can I. So she wanted to say a big thank you for inspiring her as both a little girl and as a 28-year-old woman. And what I like about this, Di, is that we've had a few people, haven't we, writing in saying that they kind of almost inspired to follow your career path after Gladiators. Do you see it as kind of two different Dianes? Like you've got your Gladiator and then it kind of came to an end and then you then started the next part of Diane?
Great question. The two Jets, the two faces of Jet. I guess I'd always wanted to study consciousness and the mind from a very early age. And I knew that at about the age of 9. My father was an astronomer, quite a deep thinker and a big thinker, but lovely, really congenial and humble and just one of the best men ever. Just a bit biased. He's no longer with us, sadly, but I used to have conversations with him as a child about consciousness and psychology and the mind, and I was always curious as to what the mind actually is. It's not really a body part, it's a system and a function of the brain, but it's kind of a real phenomena. So I knew I wanted to study it physiologically, but also like yourself, Jordana, my instinct was I didn't want to just study it and start doing neuroscience and research. I wanted to actually do face-to-face, the interface work of sitting with another being and understanding their minds, or helping them to orientate and understand their own minds better. And of course, that's talking therapy, counselling psychotherapy, as we call it. Depends what model, how you're trained. And I love that part of my career. I think I've been teaching 30 years and I've been in practice now as a psychotherapist for 20 years. And I teach people to be psychotherapists. I'm now a tutor, training the next generation of psychotherapists for the Hartwood College down in Devon. I've also got a base in London at Regent Park as well. So yeah, loving it, absolutely loving it. Good luck with that journey, Jordana. And it is a vocation. You're kind of called to it, I think. And it's a real privilege to do it. You've got to know yourself quite well and be aware of how you're changing and what goes on for you. But yeah, it's an immense profession.
It really is. And please, everyone, keep remembering to send in your Glad stories. And you can do so by emailing gladpod@gladiatorstv.com. Don't forget as well, following us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. And if you listen to us on iTunes, why not give us a 5-star rating and a review? So let's get on to this week's podcast, shall we?
3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome to Glad Pod. To the world, she is a sports star. She is Ali Paton to her friends and family, but to us Gladiator fans, it's Siren, who joined us in 1997 at Series 6. Hello and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Facing them are Siren, Rocket and Fox.
Oh, a smacker from the Siren. What a great way to start the series. 3 new girls cutting their teeth on Powerball, Siren, Rocket and Fox. And the crowd rises to them, and so does the camera.
Where are you right now?
I'm in Edinburgh.
See, we never actually got to meet, did we?
No, I know. And do you know, Diane, if I had £1 for everyone that said to me, it was my favourite Gladiator, I would be very wealthy. So it's really lovely, actually, to get to meet you finally.
I don't really have much of a comeback on that other than a big blush, and I've gone a bit sweaty, so a bit too much information. Ali, how did it all start for you? Take us back, because you're a formidable athlete well before Glads. Of course, most gladiators have to be a form of that to even gladiate, but really your history is quite something. Take us back.
Well, my main sport was always basketball since I was about 10 or 11, I think. Though I think at that age I had this weird concept that I didn't ever need to score, which probably most of my basketball coaches would be like, yes, that's what she was like. But I did team sport, basketball, loved it. Also did a bit of athletics in terms of just track running, 100s, 200s, 400s if I could cope with it. And then really for me, it was on the side of the athletics, because I then was introduced to John Anderson, because he was training athletes at an Edinburgh track. So I was really fortunate to manage to meet him. And then, of course, that kind of the rest was history, because he just was like, okay, do this. If you're good enough, you'll get on, blah, blah, blah. I'll put you in front of the producer and then it's up to him. to decide. So that was kind of
So you're aware that this show Gladiators is on, it's been on, it's become pretty popular. And when did it dawn on you that you're kind of being lined up for it? And did you get a little buzz in your heart for, I wouldn't mind that? Or were you like, oh no, my athletics is more important? What went on?
Oh no, my goodness, no, I was absolutely like, I so want to do this, and I will do anything that I can. I think I was living in a flat in Glasgow with two girlfriends at the time, and they would sit on the sofa and I would be in the door frame doing sit-ups and pull-ups, and they would just be looking at me with their cup of tea going, really, this is what you want to do? And I'm like, yes. Because I met John, and then he told me when the auditions were, they were supposed to be in London, and he gave me the time frame. So I went away and merrily trained like a demon and watched what I ate and blah, blah, blah. And then when I met up with him again, he'd been on holiday, and he said to me, oh, you've missed the audition. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, sorry, we held it in London. You've missed it. And I was kind of like, what does that mean? You know, I've been training like a crazy person. And he was like, well, there's always next year. And I was like, no, I can't. There's no way there's next year. We've got to try it for this year. So good on him. He took, obviously, myself and Pauline, who was Rocket, who was one of his athletes at the time. He took both of us to Gateshead. So we ended up going to a Contenders audition. But it was the funniest thing. He dressed us the same, like two little mini-me's. He put us in the same kind of like Gladiator-esque outfit. And I remember when we were in the changing rooms at Gateshead, a girl came in and kind of looked at us both. And I mean, Pauline's like 6'1", 6'2", and an incredible athlete. And then, you know, I'm almost 6'2". So we're both standing there. And I just remember this girl kind of going, you two look more like gladiators than contenders. And then I thought, oh, maybe I will manage to pull this off. That was such a crazy experience as well, that tryout. So funny.
Paul, weren't you actually invited to watch this Contender audition?
I was, yeah. So Gateshead was just down the road from where I was living with my parents, and I was invited by the production team to go along and watch the kind of the Contender tryouts and stuff, which was great. And I remember Ali and Pauline walking in on the audition, and it was like about halfway through, so there'd been like Contenders all morning, and then Ali and Pauline and Brian Whittle as well, he went on to be one of the contenders for the Springbok Challenge kind of internationals. But you could just so tell that Ali and Pauline were there to be gladiators. They just had this aura about them. I do remember the outfits as well, the matching outfits, and you just absolutely smashed the tryout. But you could just so tell that they weren't there to be contenders.
Is that bringing back memories, Annie, as Paul's talking?
Yeah, it is actually, because I ended up going against Pauline. They lined us up together because it was kind of like a run on a treadmill, monkey bars, rope climbs, and then you had to beat the crap out of each other at the end with a huge old stick. So I was up against her, I was next to her. So of course I could tell like she would go ahead of me on the run, and then I got ahead of her on the monkey bars, and then we're going up the rope. And so it was even more kind of, because you obviously had no concept that they might take both of us on. I kind of assumed if we were lucky, they'd take one. I didn't think for a minute they would take us both. So, and obviously she really wanted to get through as well. So, yeah.
Well, the working out as an absolute beast to get up to it obviously pay dividends for you as well at the time. And it's interesting that John Anderson kind of helped steer you through that. And had you applied for the show before? Did you think about considering entering?
Not at all. He'd actually approached an ex-boyfriend of mine who was a farmer and a runner and super fit and, you know, very handsome. I don't know why he's an ex-boyfriend, actually. Anyway, he approached him and kind of said, we're looking for men. Would you be interested? And he was like, no, work, blah, blah, blah. But he come and said this to me, and I was like, I'll do it. And he was so supportive. He was like, yeah, you should. I'll help you. And I was like, good, right, okay, I'm going to do it. So yeah, he was really helpful in me, you know, training and things as well. So that was great. He had two brothers. They all lived on a farm. It was all very crazy. We were like throwing hay bales about and all sorts.
But what was it like joining? Because you were one of 5 new gladiators, because there was yourself, there was Rocket, there was Fox, there was Gold, and there was Khan. And the show had lost Zodiac, Nightshade, Panther, Laser, and Trojan. So I guess is it kind of a bit like, I don't know, in I'm a Celebrity when they bring in, or Big Brother when they bring in kind of a new cast, did it feel like that? Or did it just feel like you were just kind of joining that Gladiator treadmill and as it was just rumbling on and on?
Oh, that's a really good question. It probably helped a bit because there was obviously a few of us who had no idea what on earth was going on. So that's all, you know. I wasn't the only one with like rabbit in the headlight expression, but yeah, I guess it was such a fun experience. Like I just remember being at the Hyatt Hotel and we had a segregated table, and you just suddenly, you know, started to see all these people that you'd normally seen on TV, and it was just, yeah, it was quite surreal, but great fun. I think it probably did help there being a few new ones all at the same time, because we could kind of talk to each other, and we trained together on the different games. Because obviously the original Glads had all done all the games for several years, whereas we were getting thrown in there and trying to learn. At the time, the year I got on, there were 21 games, and you had 3 days of training. So you had to try and get to grips with 21 different modalities in the best part of 3 days. So your forearms were like pumped up like ridiculous things, because usually every single game seemed to involve forearms. So you, as Diana, relate to all of that. But yeah, I just always think of it as being such good fun. It was such an amazing period of my life.
Because you were a late addition, you got to miss one of the training camps in Mauritius as well, didn't you? Because Fox and Gold had already been on there, and also Shark, who you never actually got to meet because he never made the grade at the end of it, did he?
No, that's right. No, I do remember meeting him, but he didn't take part in any filming. But I do remember he kind of arrived and I think maybe did a bit of training and then kind of disappeared, and it was like, oh, what happened there? But yeah, I missed out on all the lovely sunny training camp, didn't go to Mauritius, and then yeah, all of us were just together at the NIA.
Also getting ready to climb, it's Christina. She's going to be followed by one of our new gladiators, Siren.
The Siren stats well worth a gander. 180 height-wise, weighing at 70 kilos, and if we look at Christina, we'll see that her figures are exactly the same, so this should be a good match.
So once you had arrived, so here you are, an athlete in your prime, really hell-bent on wanting to be part of this show, which has become quite iconic and very popular at its time, mid-1990s. It was kind of at its peak to some degree. When you finally entered into the arena and were part of the process, was it everything you thought it was going to be?
Well, I don't know if I even had any idea what I was getting myself into. I'd always just approached it very much as an athlete. You know, I'd always just trained really hard and, made sure I didn't injure myself and train as to the best of my abilities and, try and have as healthy a lifestyle as possible. So I think I very much was concentrating on that. And then, of course, you realise, oh my goodness, actually, I need to understand TV cameras. Because when we got on, you never got any kind of training in that. I've done a lot of TV since then. But I just, looking back at it now, I think, if they'd just given you like 2 minutes of don't grin down that camera like a maniac, One game I went on, it was the funniest thing. They put me in the cherry picker to stick me up on the top of pendulum. And I had my helmet on back to front. And I was all psyched up. I was like, right, got to perform well. I've got to do a great job and blah, 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 and not let the team down. And I'm not looking at the contender. I'm not looking at her because I don't want to like her. I want to make sure I beat her. So I can't be friendly to her. I'm not even going to smile. And then I think it was John who came over and he was like, is your helmet on the right way? I was like, oh, no. Imagine if they'd done the big close-up zooming in on me and, Sarah's going against Siren and they zoom in and the G of my helmet's on the back. I mean, honestly, it's amazing I managed to stay on the show for as many years as I did. So, yeah.
What did you think of Siren? What did you think of the name? Were there any other alternatives in the mix for you?
No alternatives, and I loved it, actually. I really liked my name.
I have to admit, producer Paul sent amazing notes as ever, Paul. There's one clip of you on Pendulum which will stay with me forever. It's one of the most spectacular. I nearly leapt out of my skin when I was watching it last night thinking, I have never seen the tactic that you actually used at the very end to get the tag on the back of contenders. But do you want to explain to everybody a little bit what Pendulum was for those that don't know and what went on this one event? We've got so much more to cover, but it's just while we're on it, it's unbelievable. And it was nothing to do with the helmet back to front. You're just incredible.
As you know, Diane, pendulum was the great big ball that like swung in the air and the big impending music. Dun, 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 dun. And we were just like petrified before we even got on it. And then what people won't realise that haven't played on it is when you go around the top of it, you can move quite quickly. But as you travel down, because of the swing, it's a lot harder to grab on to stay put. So by the time you get to the bottom, so often a lot of contenders would maybe think, I'm just going to go straight to the bottom. But it was really difficult for them to hang on the full time. But anyway, I'd been going round and round with this girl, and then she headed down to the bottom, and I had ended up down there too. So both of us were like hanging on for dear life on the bottom of this ball. The time is ticking down, and I couldn't really maneuver. I just was kind of stuck because I was in front of her, if that makes sense. So my feet were kind of near her head, I think. I just could not maneuver into a position where she couldn't move either. She couldn't get away from me, but I couldn't maneuver into a position to grab it unless I just sort of let it go with my hands and allowed the swing to let me grab it. So for some crazy idea, I decided I would do that. And I grabbed it, got it, and then both of us fell in the net.
That hooked your feet under the netting. There seemed like some conscious kind of, whether you were aware of it or not, you were actually hanging upside down from your feet momentarily as you grabbed the tag, and then, because I thought you could have so landed on your neck on that cargo net, but you kind of hooked your feet and you did it. You grabbed it. You have to, on this Glad Pod, there'll be, I'm sure we'll insert a link for anyone to be able to go back and watch it. It blew my mind, actually.
Siren having a look to see where it's flapping. Siren swings down, holds on with her feet and claims the prize. Superb skills from Siren. I've never seen anything like it on pendulum. What a debut on that sphere from Siren.
Take us back a little bit more about when you first started going into you said it's showbiz as well, that meets athletics. Your costume, things like that, once you were being measured up and what it was going to be like, what your figurine or motif would be like on your costume, because the costumes, Paul, were changing by that point, weren't they?
Yeah, Siren and that kind of bunch of new gladiators were the last ones to get those iconic kind of logo costumes. Like we always kind of refer to them in the gladiators community before they changed to the kind of the white, more kind of generic looking ones. So yeah, Siren was definitely lucky to be one of the last female gladiators to get those costumes.
Yeah, I had Venus, so the picture of Venus in the famous like artwork. Yeah, I loved my costume, but I also remember before we got it, maybe being measured for it, but I didn't know what it was going to look like. And I just remember, again, being down in London with Bill Hattersley, the agent, and him saying to me, I'm all excited. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm going to have this amazing costume and I'm on this show and it's amazing, amazing, amazing. And he just kept saying to me, don't wash it in the washing machine. And I'm like, oh, it was so funny. It was like he just brought you right back down to earth.
Do you still have your costume?
Oh, of course, yes. Got it on right now.
and because it's a podcast, no one can see if it's true or not. A bit of a random question though for you. I don't know if you all know the answer to this. In the photos for that series, Fox and Gold were being swapped in and out of the group photos. Do you know why? Was it that the producers couldn't agree on the lineup?
I don't know. No, I wouldn't have been privy to any of that. So I wasn't even really aware of that until you brought it up. So they would take a set of pictures just of all the guys and then pictures of all the girls, and then they did swap, they took a lot of different sets of groups. So I don't think any of us were maybe aware of that.
Fair enough. It's always worth the ask, because sometimes those are the little nuggets that we want the answers to that that we perhaps we haven't asked before. So it's always worth asking the question. But what about the theme tune, Spice Girls? Who do you think you are?
Yeah, I quite like that too, actually. I mean, it was very current, so that was great. It was, something that everybody could relate to. So. Oh
yeah, I mean, Britpop, girl power, the Spice Girls. It was all that at that time. It was huge. So it was definitely a song for the times. And then talking about the costumes, the next series changed to the unpopular with fans, the white versions. What did you think about the change in costume for that series then?
I think it washed better. It was funny because I think the other girls that had been on the show longer were maybe more aware of the fact that they could put some input into what the design of the costume might be. Whereas I think with me, it was pretty straightforward, and they were just like, do you want a one piece or a two piece? And I was like, two piece. And then that was it. And then these, you know, amazing costume designers would come up with something for you. So let's be honest, all you want to do is make sure that it stayed on and that no part of you that shouldn't have been outside it ended up outside it.
So, super fan Daryl Ryan, he sends us over some super stats about our guests. So, you probably won't be aware of all of these, Ali, but I'll go through them. So, 63 battles over 31 shows. He played in 15 different events, which I'm sure you all agree, a true all-rounder. Unbeaten on Pyramid and Skytrack. However, the Wall was arguably your worst event. Played 5, lost 5. What was it about the Wall that you didn't like?
Do you know what? It's so funny that you bring that up. It wasn't that I didn't like it. I think it didn't like me. It was like a double whammy. When I read that I'm on the Wall, I'm like, oh, no. And then the other thing I would read is I'd be like, oh, and it's Lightning's with me. Because she's like a ferret. So not only is my contender going to be up that wall, I'm also going to look bad next to the other gladiator next to me. I don't know. I practiced it. It was an odd one. I guess I was not good on the wall. And Ulrika got to a stage where she'd be like, oh, another failure on the wall. Like, oh, thanks for rubbing that in. Thanks for bringing that up.
She was just that little bit faster. I don't think you ever got really close to her.
I think she was a lot faster, actually. I've been getting some tutorial help from Vogue and Lightning, but on this occasion they're not going to be very happy with me because I've not done my job.
You had really good bants, to use a very common phrase at me, bants. You had really good bants with Ulrika, though. And what was the one when she said about being a basketball player? I thought you'd be able to handle those large balls. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. I was always trying to get... After the first year, I was like, right, I want to get cheekier because that's more my personality. So I was like, right, I'm going to start giving her some... Because she loves it. She's great fun too, you know, so she's great with banter.
She definitely did. Being a basketball player, I thought I'd be able to handle these large balls. But
I tell you what, it was an amazing sight to see you just clinging on with your legs and flying upside down. I think that never happened before.
Well, I'm a leggy bird, so...
You are a leggy bird. Huge congratulations, Siren. I enjoyed every second of that.
Well, thank you very much. There's nothing quite like shimming up a pole on a Saturday night to keep you fit, that's for sure.
Oh, say no more. Let's hear it for Siren. Well done.
Yeah, she was always, the Wall, I was always like, oh, please don't interview me after this. She'd be rolling her eyes. The other nightmare one I had was I was up against a tug of war, the English tug of war champion. She's about 6'3". And of course, I can't remember the name of the game. You know, the game where you have to pull each other out of the circle. What was that called?
Whiplash.
Yes. So I'm up against, thanks for helping me out there. I'm up against some tug of war champion in whiplash, and she got me out the circle in about 3 seconds. And Ulrika was like, oh, you were just like a rag doll there. And that was very much. I think I should have taken her out for dinner a bit more or something so that when she interviewed me, she didn't highlight all my negatives.
Well, Siren, it's nice to see that you took advantage of your weight difference there.
What are you implying?
Well, it's just that Maria's a little bit more petite than you are.
Well, you know what it's like? It's like being on the Christmas tree and the fairy at the top. And you're wobbling about and then you just go like that. But Maria did well.
Do you know, I've never experienced that, but I'm going to look forward to it. Let's hear it for Siren. Well done.
Ulrika is great fun, even to this day. I don't know if you follow her on social media. She's a good laugh, and we will obviously all be checking you out now as well, Ali. What was fame like for you? Because obviously suddenly you are then a household name. How did you deal with it? Did you love it? Did you avoid it at times?
I think I was really, really lucky because I was the only Scottish gladiator. I really kind of got looked after, kind of got taken into everybody's hearts up here. So it was really nice. I was really fortunate. It was always positive press and it opened up so many doors. I got the opportunity to do so many different things, radio, TV, lots of charity work. And I'm a people person. I love meeting people and it was really a fun time for me. I really enjoyed it and I didn't really have any negative. There wasn't much that happened in terms of anything negative from it. So I was lucky.
Does it to this day? I mean, we've got to ask what you've been doing since the show and what it was like when you knew it was coming towards an end. What went on for you?
Well, one thing is everybody would stop and say to you, "Oh, what are you going to do now?" As if you'd lost a limb or something like that. I always tried to sort of liken it to if you were a professional, sports player. It's like, well, I had 2 degrees before I got on the show. So I was kind of like, well, it's not like I didn't do things before I got on this TV show. And now, I'll try and, maximize the opportunities that it's given me. But it wasn't like I didn't feel like I'd lost my identity or anything like that. But yeah, it's more how people react to you. They're like, "Oh, what are you going to do?" And it's like, well, I'll just do something different.
But was it the right time for the show to end, do you think? Could it have gone on any longer?
No, I would rather it carried on and I was still doing it now. That's what I think is the correct answer. I would have happily done it another few years, definitely.
Oh, you are an ultimate gladiator. I must admit, when I was reading through the notes and positive, you're like a brilliant all-rounder for any athlete going into that arena and not having any prep time on the sport-specific events. Just blows my mind, really. Obviously, you had to analyse the event if you weren't familiar with it, and then you just get on and do it. Was there any events you thought, I'm really, really sad about not having more practice on that, but hey, I'd just give it a go? Was there any event that stood out to you that you dreaded more than the others?
Hang tough, because I'm not in any way, I don't have any gymnastic background whatsoever. And I ended up loving Hang Tough by the time I'd finished the show. But at the beginning, because we'd had so little practice on it, I dreaded it big time. But by the end of the show, when I felt like I'd kind of got a handle on how to do it, I loved it.
Siren swings out to get tonight's action underway. And Siren's first season of Glad's looking very relaxed on the rings. She's facing Juliet Machin, a marketing manager working in computers, who's looking not to get herself downloaded on these rings. Now they can't stop herself crashing. Bumps straight into Siren. Siren tries to hook a foot, but Juliet manages to hit the escape button. And Siren building it up for another voluminous blast. Juliet's got herself one ringed. She's at the mercy of Siren. Siren again, but swings away. Can't get a purchase. Juliet's mum, Jean, getting agitated already. Don't peek too early. And for Juliet, the danger looks to have passed. There's boyfriend David with the encouragement. Jean regained her composure. And Siren swinging back to find a better line of attack. Juliet hovering on the edge of the scoring zone. And Siren swooping in again. Grabs an ear, shoulder, still can't get a decent grip. Now Siren one ringed. Oh, dives for it! Oh, she's out of there. The time was going down, but not as fast as Siren. Siren with a score to settle, and Trudy knows it. Trudy took 10 off Siren on the wall earlier this evening, so Siren's in no mood to concede any more to the Edinburgh-based anaesthetist. Trudy electing to go down the right wing, but that way leads to trouble. Siren takes her on the back swing. Trudy one ring. Look like Siren's got her revenge. Just under 20 seconds. Trudy force-fed a faceful of match. Her supporters just grateful she's in one piece.
Siren, wow, you've won.
Don't sound so surprised, Jeremy.
Of course you know you're always going to win.
I'm actually starting to quite enjoy that game. I think I've found myself on the rings.
And with the training I've done since being on the show, if I'd known what I know now, I would have approached things very differently back then.
What like?
Well, I got into CrossFit, which has a lot more gymnastic side to it, like handstand push-ups and muscle-ups, and you're on the rings. And if I'd been doing that prior to getting on the show, it would have made a big difference to my training, I think.
In the final series, you and Fox were switched out between the 3 shows. Do you know why this was? I wonder, and I think producer Paul, as I mentioned before as well, was this because that Jet was supposed to return?
Oh, is that? Oh, well, maybe actually, yeah. Well, we'd lost Gold and Pauline, Gold and Rocket, obviously. It was only Fox and I that came back in the final series, so we were down 2 already. So I just presumed that they were kind of sticking with the more well-known gladiators for most of the episodes, if that made sense. But yeah, Diane, if you were coming back, then that would make sense too.
Yeah, I got the call. from Nigel. I'll never forget it. It was the old times when you actually had a handset on a receiver, almost with a coil attached. We're talking a while ago.
And you didn't want to?
No, he's, I want my jet back. I'm like, oh, Nigel, can I remind you why I left? And it was because of an accident, as you all well know. And he said, oh, we'll particularly, even just do hang tough. Just do hang tough. And I said, but there's a 15-foot drop at the end of that event. I'm not doing any big falls. No, my body's more important. He said, oh, we'll rig the rig so it's like, it's only a few foot above the crash mat, but we'll shoot it so it looks like it's high up again. I just said a big fat no. I said, I'm sorry, but no, I'm, wonderful. Thank you for asking. But I just felt I couldn't put myself through it again. But there was a bit of me that was sad, thinking I should have really, but I just couldn't risk the falling. I wussed out. And then there was a tiny bit, I think, in one of the tabloids, jet axed from Gladiators. I'm like, but I left 4 years ago after an accident. Well, how can I be axed? I've not gone back. So I complained to the press office, LWT, about that and got a faux apology. But no, anyway, odd, isn't it? But what would that have meant? So for someone like me, if had I come back on that final last bit to all you guys, because you got your own camaraderie going on, what would it have been like? It would have been weird?
No, I don't think so. I think no, not at all. I think it would have been amazing for the show, because if you then fast forward and look at the reception that we all got on Legends, that's what people would have loved it if you'd come back. But you have to do what's right for you. I'm not saying for a minute you obviously made the right call, but no, if you had come back, I think they would have absolutely adored it.
Well, let's keep on their revival line then. What did you think about revival series on Sky?
When they said that was happening, I was super excited, because I was just like, oh, this is going to be amazing. And like I say, I felt like I kind of had more knowledge of what I needed to be able to do. So I didn't feel like it was that being thrown in at the deep end. I'd done, quite a bit of TV and stuff up until then, and I was still fit and training hard and really up for it. I mean, I loved it that we got to go back.
Well, because it was you returned as a legend twice, wasn't it? Once in 2008 for the Legends Strike Back, and again in 2009 for the Legends Last Stand. And there's a note here from producer Paul that you were returned in amazing shape with awesome abs. Would you have been tempted to join a team as a full-time Gladiator?
Well, I mean, they were all about, I can't remember how much younger, but a lot younger than, but I mean, yeah, I guess if they'd asked, I would have happily done it. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, I did go back feeling good. I went back, having trained hard again and thinking, right, this is going to be really fun, and I know what I'm doing. And then, of course, there were so many events that were over water. That was, well, first big difference was it wasn't shot in the NIA, so you weren't in this huge auditorium. You were in a small TV studio, so that made things different for sure. And then the fact that there were so many games that happened over water, again, that I just, every time I was interviewed, I was soaking wet. I had wet hair. It was hysterical. I mean, every single time. It was like, okay, here we're going in. But no, that was really good fun, actually, being involved in that again.
But what did you think about one of the new revival gladiators being called Siren? I think it's something that the Glad community is really against. If there is a siren, we have that siren, have different names. What did you think about the revival gladiators having the same names as some of the originals?
Yeah, I mean, Amy Guy is lovely. She's a lovely girl. But I have to admit, I was kind of like, really? You're going to have two of us with the same name? Yeah, that wasn't maybe, I didn't think that was great. Plus, I think there was only actually one that had the same name, was it not? Although I know there's a lot of sirens, like obviously there's a siren in the States. And so I think it is quite a popular name, but it did feel, especially when people then refer to you as, oh no, that's the old siren. It's like, well, thanks very much. Oh, no, are you talking about the old siren? Oh, can you use that word one more time? Yeah, that old. You know the old one? Yeah, she's over there. No, that's another one over there.
And Panther straight in to devour her prey with awesome power. Siren fights back. Panther looks unsteady and she's down. Well, that's right. Do not adjust your TV sets. Panther has lost, and her unbeaten record is in pieces. Can you believe it? This has never happened before. Siren is loving it, so are the legends and the crowd.
10 points. Come in, Siren. Unbeatable. You've proved us all wrong. She is the best, and you've beaten her. How'd you feel about that?
No, Panther is amazing up there, I have to say. I just thought this is such a lovely outfit, I didn't really want to get it wet.
Yeah.
That's what kept me up there the whole time.
Back in the arena, let's talk about an incredible triumph where you actually get to face the new Panther of the old Panther of the new series, but you're new back on Duel. I mean, talk about you're back.
Yeah, it was such a good moment, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was actually, because I know it does sound kind of crazy, but if you do have a competitive nature, then of course every time you go out, you want to do your best.
But then in your second appearance, they made you have a rematch in which Panther won. And I think there's always this feeling in the Glad community that the producers of the Revival series were trying to make the Sky Gladiators look better than the Legends. So what did you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, they're trying to build that show. So I would agree with that. They did want to. It's not ideal for them, is it, if the old ones come back and start dominating over the younger ones? So they probably did have an angle on that.
Just one question I had about that final series. Would you have liked to have competed in a Battle of the Giants type show with the female gladiators? And who do you think would have won that?
Well, I've got to say, I think Lightning would have won it.
Do you think that's why they didn't do a female version? It was because Lightning hadn't long given birth?
Probably, yes, maybe. That was pretty amazing, was she not? I'm sure when she came back and she just had that baby, it was like, oh, right, okay. She's great. Yeah, they should have done that actually, shouldn't they? But yeah, I think Kim would have won it even when she was pregnant.
Producer Paul, who would you have been your top picks then for if they did do that?
Ooh, see, yeah, I think Lightning would have stood a good chance, but for me, it would have been a really close call, to be honest. I think Siren, you would have been up there, and I'm not just saying that because you're on the call. I think Rebel as well was a great all-rounder, so I think it would have been between those three for me that possibly could have, like, across the varied events, because obviously you had Rio, who was amazing, but kind of more at the power games rather than kind of like the hang tough and stuff like that. So I think going all rounders, I think, yeah, Siren, Lightning and Rebel would have definitely been in with the shot.
If they didn't put the wall in it, I might be all right.
You weren't pulling anyone off though, you were just going up.
Even a wall, that would have been a disaster.
Now, something that happened well after my time with the show and even running around backstage with a little Hi8 camera with James Hunter, filming you guys as you came through. I was around there. You went off to do the Springbok Challenge. Now, tell us all a little bit about what happened there, how you selected for it, and what was it exactly?
Oh, that was an amazing experience. We all got to go over to South Africa together to compete in their series. So prior to me getting on, obviously, they'd gone to Australia. So I was well aware of this being a thing, if you like. So yeah, they just got a group of us together. I think James, as in Hunter, was quite prominent in pulling people in for that. Yeah, a group of us just went over and took part in their shows, and that was great fun as well. I've got a funny story about that, actually. I don't know if anyone else has told you this one. Always the practical jokers, like James and Ace Warren, they we had backstage, we had like a fridge that you could help yourselves to, water and different energy drinks or whatever. And they were trying to wind up the South African gladiators. They got beer cans, but emptied them with a beer and put, I don't know, probably water or whatever in them, but had them in the fridge. And whenever they came off a game, they would go over and just like down what looked like these cans of beer.
Well, conversely, had it gone the other way, it could have been even more colourful, I suppose. I heard it was a different setup, though, in South Africa in terms of the arena that you'd have used and the setup of the events, and also health and safety. You obviously you'd done the other version, so what was the differences?
Yeah, again, more similar to when we filmed Legends, a smaller type arena. I think when you're in the NIA, because it's so huge, you don't necessarily feel like you're in a TV production, whereas in a smaller studio, you definitely feel more like, okay, this is all being, filmed. I mean, again, it's quite a while ago when you think about it, so it would probably be so different now. Yeah, just a smaller setup and not as big a deal, I guess. Probably lower budget, for want of a better description. But I mean, the health and safety I was fine with. I don't remember being worried about anything like that, because we were all away as a group, and we got some amazing trips that they filmed us on as well. The places they took us to, we went on safari. I mean, it was an amazing trip all round, over and above the actual filming.
Siren, talk me through that teamwork.
Well, we are having a great time while we're here in South Africa, and it's great to have a shot to go with one of your fellow gladiators. Vogue and I don't usually get to go together on a game, but I have been up against Marlies on Rat Race before, and she got away from me the last time, so I think I'm quite lucky that I got to her this time.
Now talk me through that important pull down, because it was getting a bit intimate up there. I mean, you were sort of lying all over and grappling for things, and thankfully you grabbed the rat's tail.
Well, this did. We got a hold of the rat's tail, and that was it, but I was surprised that I got to her. And then once I got there, I just got my legs around her, as we like to do.
It sounds like certainly it was a really memorable trip and a memorable time for you. Now, the reason why I always ask this question towards the end of the podcast is because you've been flooding back, your brain's working out all those memories. Looking back now, what was your favourite memory? What is your favourite memory of being on the show?
Oh, there's so many, like all the fun stuff that maybe some of what I've mentioned, the funny stories, the kind of ridiculousness of it at times, but just such a positive. It's really hard for me to single out one thing, because I think from getting on the show when I really had zero TV or performing background whatsoever, to then at the end when we were filming the likes of Say Legends, where I really felt like, okay, I know what I'm doing, I'm all over this, I'm really good at this, blah, blah, blah. That was a journey for me in a way. So that's a really amazing experience for me to have had, but just the friendships as well, and probably more the funny stuff. Or I can still think about, for example, that first time I had to do Hang Tough. I honestly can still remember how nervous and anxious I was, and they took me out and there was a slight hiccup, and we had to just stand there and wait for a couple of minutes, and I was honestly petrified. And then I ended up chatting. I'm standing on the floor. They hadn't taken us up to the level that you stood on before you swung out. So I was standing down at the side beside all the audience, and this cute wee kid was desperate to chat to me. And it was so funny because I chatted away to her, and then all my nerves just went. And then you stand up on this thing, and it's experiences like that. So really hard for me to single out, one particular thing. But obviously winning games was nice too, It's just a really happy, amazing experience that I'm always fond to talk about, I guess. And like I say, the friendships that you made on the show as well.
Well, Siren, I guess I should congratulate you on giving us such a terrific performance, the two of you. I have to say, this is the stuff that Gladiators is made of. I mean, there were some serious blows up there.
Well, both of us were going what for. I have to say, it takes a lot of determination to get up there. And I have to admit, I've been psyching myself up backstage. Hate to admit it, but I have. And basically, it was a good fight.
Imagining maybe that she's somebody else.
Well, yes, you could say that.
Ali, one question for me was, with the later series came some quite interesting events such as Dogfight, Vertigo and Catapult. What did you think of those events when they were kind of introduced towards like the last couple of series that they did? Did you think that the producers were maybe running out of ideas or coming up with crazy ideas, or was it kind of influenced a bit by health and safety and kind of what they could and couldn't do with you guys?
Yeah, I suppose some of it probably was actually influenced quite a bit by the health and safety side of things, because by the time I got on the show, pole vault, yes, you were in a harness, whereas Diane, when you did it, you just fell, didn't you?
Yeah. Oh, you were in harness at the... Wow, that's interesting. Okay.
So, exactly. So they definitely obviously learned from different experiences. Vertigo was actually quite good fun. I quite liked that.
Diane, I will have to show you some of the video footage if you've not seen some of these games. The kind of renowned within the Gladiators community is either being really good like Vertigo was, or just really weird like Dogfight, where they were kind of on these kind of air balloons hung up above the arena floor holding these little mini pugil sticks. So yeah, even I'm not sure what the producers were thinking when they kind of invented that one, to be fair.
One of the times I did Dogfight, again, because we were up in the air, as you said there, we were in a harness again, and I just remember... And that was a bit of a weird one, because you just felt like you were some kid, kind of like, when a kid has a wee tantrum and you're not actually really able to hit anything with anything, but you're trying your hardest. It sort of felt a bit like that. But I remember when I did that, the harness I was in, one side of it unclipped. So then I'm like completely hanging to my right, still trying to smack this person over the head with this mini pugil stick, and just thinking to myself, this must look ridiculous.
Dave's fan Troy the Chicken wishing he could fly like Siren and Sharon. As the airships converge for conflict, let's see the Siren stats. And at 70 kilograms, she's easily 2 stone heavier than Sharon.
Do you have any other Cobra stories that bring to mind any of the silly antics that he got to behind scenes?
Oh, he was always just making us laugh. I mean, he's such fun. I did one PA with him, just the two of us up here in Scotland, actually. I remember that one. It was just quite nice to get to spend some time with him, just, one-to-one, because obviously in the show you're all together all the time, and everybody's obviously quite a big personality and quite outgoing. So you maybe don't, have the same experience as if you were just, hanging out on your own. So that was pretty nice when he was up here in Scotland. But I don't remember him actually, just all of his monkey, his monkey walk and all of that. Just never ceased to, which is nice when you've got people like that in a group, isn't it? Because it just always lightens the mood and stuff like that. He was always great fun to be around, that's for sure.
And did you have any favourite sort of friends on the show that you're still in contact with now?
Well, probably I'm still definitely, on social media with quite a few, but Suzanne Vogue, I ended up really probably the closest to her by far. And I've spent quite a lot of time with her and her family. I love her husband, Mark, who obviously she met on the show. And our kids, our kids are amazing. They're going to be amazing athletes, both of them. Because with the parents that they've got, and when you watch some of their footage on Instagram, it's very cool. So yeah, Susie, I'm still good pals with her, and look forward to hanging out with her.
We always have to ask this. Could you ever see Gladiators coming back? And would you want it back?
Yeah, I think people just loved it. It was such family viewing. There might be a different take on it. I think you have to keep things obviously fresh and new. I think that's why Ninja Warrior is so popular as well. I mean, that's an amazing show too. When you watch that, they were filming that in LA one time when I was there actually, and there were people in the lineup to audition to get on it with their own tiny mini climbing block, they brought their own little wall with them and it was in the lineup with them in the queue. They were shoving it along with them, and they filmed it at 4 a.m. So 2 a.m, 4 a.m, very different to what we did. So, I think that's a really fun show to watch too. But yeah, they'll probably come back with something.
Is that just because it was like a conveyor belt show to do while they had the set rigged and everything and cameras, they just thought they'd just get them through? Because it is a bit kind of, everyone's just fodder. No one gets past the first 2 moves, really.
Yeah, honestly, I think it was. It was that must have been like an open audition, and you just got to queue up, and then depending on, I'm sure they told them what time to come, but some people would go through the tryouts at 2, 4, because you could buy tickets to go and watch it. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going at 4 a.m. Sorry, I'm not doing that. Yeah, that's the way they were filming it over there. So it's always interesting to see, because nobody knows any of that, do they, when they watch it on the TV? Nobody really. It's just the same as our show. Nobody knows that we've all got our costumes stuck on us.
Oh, it's been, do you know what? It's been an absolute, I've never met you the first time. It's been an absolute pleasure to meet you now. And you live in my favourite country on the whole planet, on the whole surface of the planet, Scotland. I go there twice a year if I can to holiday. So maybe I'll come up via Edinburgh the next time I come up for a break, and we'll hang tough sometime.
It's such a pleasure to meet you too, because our paths didn't really cross on the show. It's so nice. Like I say, when everybody says to me, oh, my favourite was Jet. Even my best friend said that to me this morning when I said I was doing this. I was like, really?
Still?
And she's like, obviously I'm you. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, thanks. Just throw that in there. So you're well loved in Scotland as well. So yeah, come and visit. That would be lovely.
Well, I love Scotland equally, so I can't wait to come up, and I will jet fly by and say hi to your friend as well, and go a douche on her head saying, right, let's get this real right now. Let's meet up again on GladPod, because life goes on and we have an awful lot more to tell about our stories. Would you be okay with that?
Yeah, I would love that. It's been great chatting to everybody. And Paul, it's always lovely to chat to you too, because you have such great memories of everything, but from a different from a different perspective. So it's always fun to get your take on things. Just totally remember you just as a little kid. It's so funny. You obviously just make us all feel exceptionally old, but we'll forgive you for that. You do such a great job to keep everything alive. So thank you for that.
No, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to come and speak to us. It's been really, really nice. Thank you.
So there we have it, Siren on GladPod. And you know me by now. I do always enjoy that kind of the background of where they've come from and how that's kind of influenced them on the show. And actually, you know, Ali was talking about approaching it as an athlete and then suddenly realizing that she had to get used to the TV cameras. And that's something that it's been a constant theme, hasn't it? That we've heard, you know, when you look back to kind of Rebel from series 1, and actually it's not just about, you know, from an athletics point of view, it's not just about running the 100 meters. It's about running the 100 meters, but looking so great and having great, you know, everything's beautiful about it, how you're doing it. So, but the other thing that I really did enjoy about Ali was she's very cheeky, isn't she, Paul?
Oh, massively. And like I say, I think that came across on the show, and it definitely came across in our chat with her just then. Like, even like how she missed the Gladiator audition after John Anderson had kind of got a training for it, and how she was like, nope, I need this audition. We need to make it happen. I've been training for this. And how she was cheeky enough to kind of say to John Anderson that she needed that tryout, and how she managed to get into the Gateshead contender tryouts, and then obviously was selected as Siren. So, and obviously we've heard some of the like audio clips of her kind of with Ulrika, and her cheeky personality came across on the screen. And I think that's what really set her aside from all of the other gladiators, is that, like I say, she was a really good gladiator, but she had a different personality that came across with it. And obviously being the only Scottish gladiator as well. And I know that Scotland definitely took her into their hearts, and she had a lot of positive press and lots of media work from being Scotland's only gladiator.
One thing, Di, that she mentioned, which I just made a note of here, is that she wished that she'd had a bit more input into her costume design, but actually that she was happy with it overall. Do you wish that you'd had a bit more input?
I was happy at the time. I guess it's because it was an unknown, because we were the first. It was an unknown quantity. However, by season 2, and obviously we'd done the very first series, and I knew kind of what I felt worked or didn't work for me in the arena, because Stephen that made me like these like Bridget Jones pants. And I'm not a tall girl. They wanted our glads to be tall, and I wasn't. And they're scraping the bottom of the barrel, in my view, to select me, because they wanted us minimum 5'7", 5'8". I'm just under 5'6" now. So I don't have the longest legs or the longest, lankiest body for looking glamorous or athletic like some of our gorgeous athletes on the show. So I wasn't happy with my Bridget Jones pants. So I, by season 2, had gone, right, you got to cut it higher in the leg. I mean, they got tiny, didn't they, Paul, for me? You got to cut it higher in the leg, and I need a little bit more down on so I've got a little bit of chesticles showing, because actually that's all I've got. And I've got a bit of ab going. So yeah, I make it a 2-piece and keep it a 2-piece. And so yeah, I didn't think about it too much at the beginning, but I think having kind of road tested it at the very beginning, and then we were lucky, unlike Ali and a lot of our later gladiators, we were lucky to be alongside Stephen Abnett, the original costume designer, and his team, to be able to have some input. And he was really amenable and willing to try and really make it work. So we felt comfortable with our image and our very small piece of athletic equipment called the Gladiator costume.
And the other thing that made me chuckle was she was saying how the wall didn't like her. It wasn't that she wasn't very good at the wall. It was that the wall didn't like her. It did get me thinking, actually, that we when you hear about the events that gladiators didn't like, the one question we don't really ask is, you may not like the event, but you may still have had a fairly good win ratio on it. But for Ali, the wall was not the place for her. But for you, Di, just remind me again of which ones weren't your favourite. And did you still win on them, or did you always, you couldn't have always lost on them?
My voice. I'm just picturing the pugil stick didn't like me. The 25-foot up in the air podium of the pugil stick and duel didn't like me. That would be a great excuse, wouldn't it? No, I'd ruptured a disc in my lower spine, so anything that meant I had to put force through my upper body and forward flex from the hips, anyone who knows a bit about sport and athletics and fitness will know what I mean. So that is being where you bend your body forwards to at least 90 degrees without putting your hands on your thighs or on a table to support yourself. So I'd got a real weakness in my lower back going on, creating sciatica, which is not a nice thing to live with. So I'd said by season 2, until we can get this disc sorted, I was gladiating on a ruptured disc. Not good. Felt awful. A lot of pain management, and LWT at the time were doing anything to support me. Nigel Lithgow, I thank you. But I didn't get on with duel, because literally to stand in a powerful pose and put that much force and ballistic work through my upper body with no support on the lower body made me very, very unstable. I still think I won, but again, I think I won on one of the duels I ever did. I think I only did 2 or 3, Paul. You'll know the stats. Because I could see the girl was going off balance. Of course, we've got the hard helmets on duel, so you really are top weighted with a heavy stick and everything. So I just then tapped her on her butt and used advantage of her literally losing her balance. So it wasn't kind of a ballistic, like what Shadow would do or any of the boys would do, where you just literally blast someone off. Lightning was very good at duel. So yeah, duel didn't like me. But there was reasons beneath it. It wasn't just simply because it wasn't naturally suited for me. I was probably not in the best physical shape to do an event like duel. No, I get that. But I think overall that my overriding thinking now of that chat with Siren, it was just so positive, so upbeat, her talking about so many friendships. I loved it. It was all lovely to hear. But Paul, the one thing I want to pick up with you was the kind of the old Siren on the new Siren, and that duel against Panther and winning as well. I thought they were both good, memorable moments from that chat.
Yeah, no, totally. I think, obviously, even though the wall didn't like her, Siren did have some of the more standout performances. I think, especially the pendulum, where she hung upside down and was swinging, which we discussed in the chat, was a standout moment in Gladiator history. And then obviously facing against the new Gladiator Panther on the Sky Revival series on duel and winning, probably much to the dismay of the Sky producers, who obviously wanted their new gladiators to be undefeated and things like that. So to have Siren, who, like you say, she was on there and she had the most amazing abs. She probably could have still been a gladiator back then, and I'm not sure why they didn't hire her as a gladiator for that series, really. But yeah, when she knocked Panther off on that duel, I must admit, with the atmosphere in that Sky Arena, which, like I say, was a lot smaller than the original, the atmosphere was electric at that moment when she managed to do that. So yeah, she did have some really standout moments within her Gladiators career, and like I say, just a very positive, friendly, happy experience, and that's great to hear. And like I say, I know that she's still really great friends with Susie Vogue, which to this day is just fantastic to see that those friendships really still stand the test of time.
Do you know what she's left me with in terms of the chat just now was, I wish I'd been able to share the arena as a gladiator with her. She would have been so much fun to work alongside.
Oh yeah, and I think a lot of the fans would have liked to have seen that as well. I think you would have been awesome together on a Powerball pitch, or even maybe you could have taught her to climb the wall better.
Thanks, Di. Thanks, Paul. As always, let us know what you thought about this episode, and if it sparked any fresh memories for you watching Gladiators, or if you have any questions. gladpod@gladiatorstv.com is the email address you'll need. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and of course, like our Facebook page.
Good competition, good spirit, great sportsmanship as both contenders show mutual respect. Join us again next week for the ultimate challenge, the might of